Welcome to the final turn of 1944. These were the two cards. Turns out, looked it up later, that step losses occur at the beginning of the combat phase. Basically, and the card is a bit vague, I have to admit. It says next to a German area. Does that mean an original German area, or a German homeland area, an area within Germany proper, an area occupied by the Germans? So that's all a bit vague. Anyway, the only area that actually qualified, because it was next to a German area, was Denmark, so I reduced the fighter by 2 steps. And later on in the production phase, I added 1 again, because obviously there's a limit of adding 1 step per unit per production phase. Now, what else happened? A lot happened. First of all, as I mentioned in the previous video, the Allies, other than attacking all the way from the south, they attempted an amphibious assault, and they landed unopposed in, can't see the name of the area anymore, but to the north of Rome. I believe it was Florence. And they landed there unopposed, so they became the defenders. The Italians did attack them, and they did inflict also quite a lot of casualties, but not enough to dislodge them. So the Allies successfully took the area. Well, that qualifies for the qualifications, because of which the Italians surrender, because all of Libya has already been under Allied control for many turns, and now also an area next to Rome. So the Italians surrendered, and they, that is, the Allies automatically control all areas in Italy, except for the ones occupied by the Germans, which are the 2 in the north. So that was the first battle that occurred. I just left the battle tokens to remind me of where exactly the battles occurred, because these last couple of turns there have been quite a few. Now, another battle took place in the Ionian Sea. The Italian Navy was attacked there, mainly to keep it from reinforcing the battle in Florence. In other words, to pin it. The Italians didn't do too well. They lost quite a few steps against a single aircraft carrier. But anyway, in the end, it didn't matter. It was a victory to no avail, because the Italians surrendered and they were all removed from play. Now, those were 2 Allied command, I believe. I don't quite remember what they did with the third. No, wait a minute, they just had 2. And 3 of them went to the Russians. And this amphibious invasion cost only 1 command because it was unopposed. So that's what the Allies did. Now, what did the Russians do? They attacked Berlin yet again. But, I'm not sure if you can see it very well, but there's a full-strength SS unit and a full-strength Fortress unit. And they hit very hard on a C3, and they're very difficult to dislodge. And so far the Russians haven't managed to do that yet. The Russians did attack Budapest, and they did so successfully, so they took that one as well, including the resource, and again, yet another one was distracted from the German total. There are 2 E's here. Actually, one should be F, but there is no F, so I just used another E. The Russians attacked the Germans in, I believe it's Danzig. They did inflict some casualties, but they didn't manage to conquer it. It's a wooded area. You can't see that because all the units are on top of it, but that meant that well, the defenders were pretty strong there and inflicted quite a few casualties. Obviously, the Russians just rebuilt their losses pretty quickly, which the Germans couldn't. The only thing they were, in fact, able to do is to bring their fortress unit in Berlin back up from 2 to 3. It lost a step, during the battle, but subsequently it was added during production. The Germans also attacked Warsaw, hoping to cut off some Russian forces, but in hindsight, that was, not a very well thought out thing to do, because there's no way they could have interrupted Russian supply. Maybe, I don't quite remember that, but maybe I did it so as to cut off a possible retreat path for the Russians, which to some extent worked, but it also would have worked by just contesting it, because I believe some units retreated to one unit and a leader or something, or an air unit retreated back from the battle in Berlin, and another infantry unit, which was down to one step but still was eliminated because it was unable to retreat. So that's basically what happened. The Russians, maybe an interesting fact to show you still, are up to 20 resources by now, because they're doing very, very well, and up to 18 factories, and of course they still have their resources and factories in the Urals as well. I do believe the factories are actually included on the track, but the Urals count as if it were a separate country, because all production, all PPs have to be spent within the Urals, so limited by the factories as well. So the way it stands now, they can produce 5 steps of, not 5 steps necessarily, but 5 PPs worth of units or steps in the Urals, and the other ones are shown on the track. So the Russians certainly don't need to worry about any lack of production. Well, that about sums up the last turn of 1944. Let's see if 1945 is going to finally bring Allied victory.